My name is Lauren, and you're Hero Live with Lauren, and I'm sitting with Daniel Wallach, who recently played Marcellus in Hamlet at Marin Shakespeare in California. Daniel, it is your second season performing at Marin Shakespeare. Tell me a little bit about the production and your experience with the company, which is celebrating its 29th year.
The company's been around a long time. Before I went to drama school, I did a summer there where I was an apprentice there for one summer, where I did a production of King John, which is a little known Shakespeare play. It's not very popular. We had a very short run. The director really wanted to do it. And we did it. We had some decent audiences for it. That was 6 years ago. And then I auditioned for them again this year for Hamlet. Hamlet's production was set in modern times. We had guns. We had a great cast, actually. Some really great Bay Area actors who work on some of the Bay Area's main stages joined for the production. But the company, I should mention, I'm not involved in this part of the company, but the company, Marin Shakespeare, is very involved in work with the prison systems. They do the Shakespeare Behind Bars programs throughout California. And it just so happens that one of their main actors now, who was their Othello in 2016, was a released inmate that they had been working with, and he was an inmate for something like 20 plus years. And he was their Othello in summer 2016. That production was awarded the Theater Bay Area Critics Best Production of the Year award. And then he's also joining as in Pericles this summer. He's a wonderful man. He's a wonderful gentleman. And so that's a lot of the work that Marin Shakespeare has been focusing on when they're not doing their summer season. I'm there for the summer season, and we just recently closed Hamlet, which ran for about 6 or 7 weeks. But yeah, that's a little bit more about the company.
And I know one of your jobs at Marin Shakespeare is teaching Shakespeare in the summer camp program to, I guess, middle schoolers, 8 to 12-year-olds. So tell me about that experience and making Shakespeare relevant and interesting to kids.
The kids are just great. And I don't know if it has to do with something about them being at a younger age where they haven't learned to be turned off by this kind of stuff, where they haven't learned to be turned off by something that could be daunting to somebody in school, especially when it's presented by a teacher in a classroom format, which I do not think is an appropriate format for Shakespeare. Seeing that Shakespeare is a playwright who wrote for actors, he wrote on little tiny sheets of paper that actors memorized from, and all they had was their line and maybe a cue line, and it was only for the stage. It was only for the stage, really. So when you're sharing this with kids and you're saying this is for performance, this is for you, this is not 400-year-old text. This is not it is, but you're not presenting it that way. You're presenting it in a way that you can say, you can use this. You can use this to get up on stage. You can use this to communicate with somebody else. You can use this to communicate your own feelings. So with kids, it's all about making that really exciting for them. It's all about saying that, these are real people who are dealing with very real things. And the world is imaginative. The world is often, if you're in a fantasy world with Midsummer Night's Dream, that's a fantastical world. So the kids are, kids who are, reading books or reading stories set in fantastical worlds, it's very simple to explain to them, this is the world of this play. So they're very quickly adaptive to that. So I find Shakespeare is a little bit more adaptable to kids of a younger age because they haven't learned to be turned off from it yet. When we're doing work with the text, like scansion work, or we're doing very specific work with iambic pentameter, or the specific study of the language itself, that can be a little daunting. It's all about making that more engaging for kids. But for Hamlet, our kid audiences, our school audiences, in many ways were much more engaging than some of our more adult-based audiences. When we had the at the end of Hamlet, unbeknownst to a lot of people on the stage, the Queen drinks the poisoned cup. And almost everybody in the audience from this group of maybe eight-year-olds from a school in Oakland collectively gasped because they knew the reality of what was going on. They were engaged. So I've learned to never make a mistake of questioning a kid's ability to grasp Shakespeare.
Let's talk about you and your education a little bit. You graduated from the California Institute of the Arts, Cal Arts, and you got to study under the tutelage of actor James Franco. Talk to me a little bit about that experience and working with such a well-known and established performer.
So there was a program through the film school that a lot of the actors got very excited about, obviously because James Franco was involved. But they were doing this experimental work with Tennessee Williams, which was a combined theater and film experience. And this is James Franco taught this with the head of the film directing program, named Deborah Levine, who was probably one of my favorite professors in my time at Cal Arts. But we did these experimental productions of Tennessee Williams plays when I started with, in my third year at Cal Arts, the production of A Streetcar Named Desire. In my final year at Cal Arts, we did The Glass Menagerie. So we worked with student directors, and we worked with our larger picture directors, James and Deborah, who taught the class and directed the larger production, worked with our directors, and also worked with us directly. As you know, it was wonderful to get to be on stage and then to get direction from a 2-time Academy Award nominated actor. It's a fantastic thing. He was a fine director. And what was wonderful, and it's a wonderful thing to be in drama school to try new and exciting things, is that I was asked to play Blanche Dubois. Obviously, I'm a man. Obviously, I'm not a middle-aged woman going through a life crisis like Blanche was. But I had the opportunity, which is to experiment with different parts of my art form in that class. It was a very awesome environment to try different things. So we had an audition, and I went up and I did this with of Blanche's, and that's what I was asked to do for that production. It was probably the most valuable theatrical experience from my college education. I was involved with other fantastic productions while I was at Cal Arts, but this is where I felt where I was really asked to test myself, to stretch out my legs in an environment that said there are no rules. There are you are an actor, and we want you to try this. So yes, I did Blanche. It was very exciting. It was drag and not drag at the same time. And it was just a very supportive environment. And both Deborah and James were all very incredibly invested in the work, invested in keeping in their vision, and I had a great time doing it. Yeah.
And any advice or words of wisdom that Professor Franco gave you, kind of working with him, those two productions?
Professor Franco. I was actually the only one who called him that. But he does, by example. He does a lot of weird things. He has his own production company, Rabbit Bandini, where he does a lot of crazy things, a lot of things that don't get seen by other people. He keeps experimenting and figure out what kind of artist he is. So in that kind of way, he was leading by example. By asking us to do a lot of these really interesting things in school, he was showing us that, this stuff can still be exciting, and you can still experiment. You can still, do these wacky things that you want to do. So he was, when James Franco is out in the real world, he's called upon to be James Franco. He's called upon. He's become a very interesting actor. He's done a lot of interesting things, but in the end, when he's for at least for his bigger productions, he's not called upon to do the kinds of things that he does by himself with his own production company. But he was showing us that even when you're constricted by the rules of the game, you're constricted by your own brand, when you're constricted by what your agent or your manager is asking you to do out in the professional world, where your brand is money, your image is money. You can still, you're not a constricted artist. You can still make things with your fellow collaborators. You can still make things with your people you went to school with, and maybe those things become, maybe you're airing something on a platform like YouTube, or you're airing something, smaller, and it gains a certain audience and it gets bigger, and then suddenly you're an artist who's allowed by your public audience to do these crazy, wild things. So in that kind of way, he led by example. Yeah.
And what's the dream? Are there any roles you're dying to dig your teeth into, and what's kind of next for you?
Well, I'm going to finish my contract with Marin Shakespeare Company in about a month, and then I think I'm going to go to New York. I graduated drama school in 2016, and I am now eligible to join the Actors Equity Union. And I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to dive into the jungle that is the New York metropolitan area. I'm going to be reacquainting myself with my community over there, the people I know from school, the people I studied with when I was in, I studied for a semester in Connecticut at the, it's called the National Theater Institute. It was an amazing semester-long conservatory program, and I met many people there that I hope to rekindle my relationship with. And I was in Los Angeles for a little bit. Los Angeles is a fantastic place if you're interested in Los Angeles. It's not a place that was particularly inspiring to me. There may be another time in my life when Los Angeles is inspiring to me. But I'm ready to get to New York, audition for Shakespeare, audition for theater, audition for film and television, audition for work that takes me out of New York, back into hopefully the regional theater scene, if that becomes accessible to me. When you're a graduating drama school, it obviously takes time to build a reputation, to build people who can say that, I trust that person, or people who say, oh, I know he can do that, or even people who say, I know he can do that, or then another person who says, but he can also do that. It's all about getting out there and being present. Even if you're a introverted person like me, you have to keep reaching out and sharing with people. And dream roles. I don't know. I people keep writing great plays, and I keep falling in love with new stuff. There's television shows that I'm just in love with right now. I'd love to be a part of one day. Like I'm watching, I'm just rewatching The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. This old New York time Jewish family time period piece with this kind of like uh, sitcom like language. I just love it. I would love to be everybody's uh, uh, nice, quirky Jewish boy in all their projects. But I will continue to share my love for Shakespeare and my love for this work, wherever that brings me. I hope it brings me to a paycheck, obviously, but I I hope to continue what I do. Share more of this stuff with people, share more of Shakespeare with people, share more, even characters, depending on whatever kind of character you're playing, you're communicating with an audience, you're communicating with people, you're saying, you're living out realities on the stage, which is it's a form of entertainment, uh, but in its larger sense, in its more ethereal sense, it's a very basic human form of communication that I really do believe in. You hear actors and drama people go on and on about that kind of stuff, but it's real, um, and it's real enough for me to have a career in it.
Well, thank you, Daniel Wallach, for speaking to me, and we will certainly keep an eye on you as one to watch.